Welcome to Luke versus Hong Kong Cinema, the first ever edition, the first installment, the first video. Here we are, let's get right into it. And this is the first film I watched for this series, and this is the beginning of our journey through more Hong Kong films. Check out the introduction if you haven't seen it, to kind of get an idea of where I am with my Hong Kong cinema journey. It is a full-on, full-blown love affair at this point, and how appropriate is it to start with a film that literally has Hong Kong in the title? Although I think the translated title from the Cantonese title, I guess, were they speaking? Let's see if original Cantonese. So sometimes it's like that. There's that crossover point where Mandarin was used a lot, and then there was kind of a shift, a seismic shift into Cantonese. So the Cantonese title, I believe, is translates to "Waiting for Dawn," which I love, but Hong Kong 1941 is the title we're going to go with here. So this is spy number 320 in the Eureka Masters of Cinema collection. And this is a film that I had very little expectation of. Directed by Po Chi Leung, that's how you pronounce it. And that will be something that will be just a mainstay in this series, is excuse me, butchering these names. I don't know where my voice is going. It's gone. It's going. It's going. It's gone. I think I just need to cough. Do I have a voice? Yes, I do. Okay, cool. It'd be difficult to do a video without a voice. So, this film, 1984, Po Chi Leung. Yeah, again, I'm not too sure about the pronunciation. I love this image with the sword, which is very, very symbolic, because this is a film, a drama, a melodrama of sorts, that is set right before and during the Japanese occupation of Hong Kong in World War II in 1941. And so this sword here, and we see the Japanese soldiers using the swords in the film. Well, I was going to say rather memorably, but I mean it's it's memorable in a very stark, violent way. So it's a very fitting one here, and we have our three main characters on the front here, and this is very much a trio movie. We got these three characters whose lives become intertwined, and I like that when you have kind of a group of characters, 2, 3, maybe 4, who have these separate lives and these separate experiences, and they're drawn together by circumstance and form a very strong bond, and this film does a great job of that. So we have Chow Yun-fat, who's this he's a bit of a wanderer, a bit of a chancer. You know, we when we first see him in the movie, he's just sat on the balcony looking at the world map and trying to, he's kind of tracing his finger along the balcony as kind of like, this is where this location is and stuff in the distance, and then he does a backflip on the balcony and almost falls off of it. He feels like a dreamer, a chancer, and we actually see him try and sneak on board a ship headed for Australia, and that becomes an unsuccessful attempt. But I loved his accepting of his fate when he got caught. Just this big smile, and they took a picture of him, and he's like, "Yeah, cheese," and then jumps off the boat, But he's a very charismatic guy, but feels a bit lost at the same time. And then you have Alex Mann, I believe that's his name, yeah, and he is in a more rougher state of mind and being, I think. He kind of runs a bit of a gang. They have a side hustle, stealing rice and selling it on the streets and stuff. And he just feels like a real, I don't know, just like a kind of, almost like a street urchin. I don't know, it's just this image of him just like shirtless with like a towel around his neck, and he's got this very intimidating smile, Alex Mann. He would have been a great Joker, I think. Talk about him more in a little bit, but yeah, he is. He and Chow Yun-fat's character, they feel very similar in terms of who they are and where they are in kind of the hierarchy of society. But Alex Mann's character just feels way rougher. He feels street tough, whereas Chow Yun-fat feels a bit more privileged, even though he isn't really. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way he holds himself. He feels more composed. He feels like a person who's got it way more together than Alex Mann, his character's just wild. There's a wild side to him. And then we have Cecilia Yip, who is a privileged young girl, a very young woman who just is getting married off, or her father's trying to marry her away and stuff, and she has these weird episodes, which I don't know if it's like a medical condition or something, and her mother died young, but she kind of grew up being friends with this Alex Mann character, so it was kind of like the rich girl and kind of the rough kid, and they have kind of this friendship, and then their paths kind of cross with Chow Yun-fat, and there's just this great chemistry between all three of them. First we see Chow Yun-fat's character meet Cecilia Yip. I should have got the characters' names down. Do we have that on the back there? It just says who stars in it. But again, I just love a film which does that with characters, and when you have the chemistry that works, it makes it so much better. And I feel like the chemistry between all three of them was really clicking. And yeah, it becomes a bit of a love triangle, but I felt like it wasn't as overly focused on the romantic aspect of it. But there's this incredible sequence where, it feels like for these three people, they have dreams, and they want to go out and see the world and get out of Hong Kong, and this idea of the Gold Mountain as this kind of just this symbolic place that they can go to, and a better life, something more. And right as they're about to kind of make that leap, the occupation happens, and those dreams get crushed. And there's a sequence outside a building where all the locals are being ushered into this church, I think. And Alex Mann's taken away by the police, and it's all chaos is erupting. And then Chow Yun-fat is left with Cecilia Yip, and she's kind of has this almost this panic attack or this kind of episode, and he calms her down, and he just holds on to her. He's like, it's all right, it's all right, it's all right. And the way that she's kind of moaning, it almost felt a bit sexual. It might just be her choice of, the groaning, I guess. But it's mainly just the way her hand was gripping his shoulder, and there was like an intimacy to it. She was just gripping his shoulder, and he's holding on to it. It's all right, it's all right. And then they pull apart then, and they just look at each other, and there's this intensity there that just fucking cracks off the screen. And then they leave it there, and it's like, what's going on there? And then that Alex Mann is in love with Cecilia Yip, but that Cecilia and Chow Yun-fat have this a different kind of connection. But I always love this when I see a film like this with maybe a love triangle, and you see the honor in Chow Yun-fat's character where he recognizes that he maybe has feelings for her, but he respects that they have a history together. And he respects that Alex Mann's character loves Cecilia Yip. And so he's more than happy to step aside from that, and happily. And so you don't get these moments where there's tension of because Alex Mann eventually wants to marry her and stuff and gets the father's approval, although he doesn't tell her that, which ends up being kind of a whole drama that he kind of starts going around the town and saying, I'm getting married to her, and she wasn't even aware of it. So she's kind of pissed off about that. But you'd have these moments where you'd expect to see Chow Yun-fat in the background, the look of shit, the conflict. There's none of that. But you can almost tell behind his eyes that, there's a part of him that dies a little bit when he's like, oh, they're getting married now. But he smiles so genuinely at the same time. And that's just a brilliant thing for an actor to convey. I don't know if it is body language or acting with the eyes or whatever, but he's so great in the film. All three of them are great, I think. Cecilia Yip, I think, is a bit more unstudied. She feels like a young, naive character, but also a kind of a naive actress, if that makes sense. I just feel like there's parts of her performance that feel, not as polished as the other two, but at the same time, there are these real raw emotional beats that really connect, and I just think she seems to have something really special. And it really comes out in this film. I feel like it's appropriate to her character as well, as this young woman who really is just, the world is kind of opening up to her and then being closed down at the same time. And there's a yearning for more romantically, spiritually, I think, and just in a sense of just getting out of this horrible situation. And what I did like was, going into this film, you're not going to get the rundown on everything that happened with the Japanese occupation of Hong Kong in 1941. So I think it would be wise to go into this film if you haven't seen it before, not expecting kind of to come away historically informed on all of that, because it doesn't really, it really is from their perspective. And the focus is really on the drama of those three characters. So it's a really intense backdrop, and that's what I liked about it. You know, there's a scene where they're walking. That's just brilliant scene, horrible scene where they're walking. The three of them are walking, and it's kind of like, you know, the Japanese are there, but they're learning to just find the joy in these simple things. And the three of them are walking down this kind of country path, and it's a sunny day, and there's these kids in front of them, and they're playing and stuff, and it's like, oh, you know. And then they look over the wall of this building, of this house that they used to know, and they just peek over the fence and look through the hole in the gate. And Chow Yun-fat just has, and just the way that it's framed with the barbed wire by his face, and he looks over, and he just sees these, you know, these people like on their knees, and the Japanese soldiers are there with the sword, and the way that the soldier is framed from below, and the sword there, and he brings it up. I think it's kind of slowed down a little bit too, and then he just chops this guy's head off. And Chow Yun-fat's like, don't look, like, let's just leave, you know. And then you juxtapose that with the kids who are playing, who are kind of playing like, yeah, let's, you know, like, it's so impactful and adds so much threat to what's going on there. And this guy, this Japanese soldier who's kind of rallying the village to be like, you know, like to rah Japan kind of stuff. And Alex Mann's character is so against, I mean, as you would be. He's so against kowtowing to them in any way, shape, or form. Whereas Chow Yun-fat, his character is willing to go along with it as a means to an end. He's willing to cozy up to the Japanese, to have the armband with the flag. But, you know, he is doing it in service of something bigger than himself. And I love that aspect of it too. And the mainlanders, they call them. So I'm assuming, you know, from China, that's a whole other group, and there's a ringleader of that group, and he sees Chow Yun-fat with it, and he's like, you're a traitor. And he's like, you're damn right I'm a traitor. And he gets up in his face and stuff, and then kind of quietly under his voice, he kind of implies what he's doing, and he gets it, like, yeah, fair play. And so they begin this relationship of kind of these little note passes and stuff, and there's a whole other kind of circuit going on that you see a lot of in the film, but it's implied that it's going on, and that he's doing all he can by appearing to be submissive to the Japanese, Chow Yun-fat, but really he's sticking it to them in a way that they haven't really, and maybe would never really realize. I love that part of it. Now, when I watch a film, I like to go on Letterboxd and get kind of the everyman, you know, viewpoint. You know, what do people think of this? People I know, people I don't know. And sometimes I'll even go as far as like filtering by, you know, all the people who reviewed it 5 stars, all the people who reviewed it like half star, 1 star. Just get a gauge of like, why do people love it? Why do people hate it? This one is so middling. It's like 2 stars, 1.5 stars, you know, 2.5, maybe 3 at a push. People don't like this film very much. 1984, it's set, you know, obviously in 41. And it is framed as a kind of, there's a narrative flashback to it. It begins with a character looking back on their life, and the narration throughout. Very sparsely though, I like that. It didn't feel like the narration was heavy. But you're every so often you're reminded that this is a flashback kind of story, which bakes in a kind of cinematic expectation of getting to the end of the film and seeing where that person is now, you know. So I like that. It was just a nice little dangling thread throughout. The music is beautiful. I haven't gone through all the extras yet, and I have to say this thing. I went through just the interviews just to see how much there was. I think with the interviews and the trailers and all the video extras on this release, there's 2.5 hours of video extras, and there's a commentary from Frank Jiang. I started listening to it and really enjoyed it, and I think you'll have a lot of great insight on the historical kind of aspect of the film, because you know, he tends to really do a good job of explaining a lot of that stuff. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about the Japanese occupation of Hong Kong in the commentary, no doubt. But I don't know anything about the music, but it was very 80s, you know, electronic, I guess, but synthy, I don't know. And it just feel like the film is dominated by a score, but even just like the music used in the end credits felt like something from Drive for me. And it taps into that weird emotional thing that electronic music can do for me. and I suppose it's all music, but there's just something about that specific tone, the tonality maybe of electronic music that just it taps into something. Maybe it's growing up in the 80s and 90s. I don't know what it is, but the end credits, the music just it just wrapped the whole movie together for me. And the final shot of the film was just so beautiful. I love this film. I think it's a fucking masterpiece. I just 5 stars. There's just something about it, and the cinematography is absolutely beautiful. There's a sequence where Alex Mann's character gets held captive by this group, and you get the feeling that once the Japanese have kind of occupied Hong Kong, there's almost a lawlessness going on, and there's these different groups and pockets of people who are kind of working with and against them. And there's this group run by Wu Ma, and I was like, oh fuck, I love Wu Ma. Whenever he pops up, it's so fun to see him, and he's this really memorable kind of gang leader in a wheelchair, and there's just this courtyard setting, and in the balconies they're setting off firecrackers everywhere, and it's just this big, like a wave of firecrackers, and the camera just pans down to Wu Ma sat there in this wheelchair with all these crackers going. It's such an amazing character entrance shot. There's just something so like beautiful about it. And then they pay that off by we see someone who's done something wrong, and he gets one of his subordinates to stick a firecracker in this guy's ear and lights it on fire, and it turns this once beautiful image into something really violent. I love that kind of that cinematic twist. But yeah, I loved it. Like, and I could go on about other bits and pieces, but I may do a full in-depth review of this at some point. I'd love to have the time to. I don't know if I will, but this was such a great film to start this whole series with, because I really had no idea if what it was going to be like or not. I love Chow Yun-fat from like Hard Boiled, but really, can I count on more than one hand? Really, the films I've seen Chow Yun-fat actually in, because I haven't seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but it's like one of the Pirates movies that I don't really remember much of his involvement in. Hard Boiled, obviously. There's Rich and Famous and Tragic Hero, which are kind of two parts of the same film, which he isn't in as much, I feel like, as the other two leads. Seventh Curse, which is kind of a cameo. And then this film, really. But I love him in Hard Boiled. He has such a charisma. And what I did hear in the commentary is that he was considered kind of box office poison heading into this film, and this was the film that broke him out as kind of a leading star, and you can see why. There's just something about his performance that's it's beautiful. I don't know. There's yeah, not to make an aside here, but I was watching the Japanese film, or I guess Japanese film by Wim Wenders, Perfect Days. This about this toilet cleaner, right? And amazing film. And I was walking with my mum earlier today, and I was telling her about this film we watched, me and Connie, the night before. And she went, my mum just looks at me and she goes, "You watch some fucking weird films, you do." And she said, "Oh, it's all artsy fartsy stuff, isn't it?" So I'm just so weird when I'm here going like, "Oh, Chow Yun-fat's performance was beautiful." It's like such wanky shit. And to some people like my mum, it's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" But that is the way I would describe it. There's a tenderness and a warmth to his performance, and there's a great scene I don't want to talk about because it would spoil something, but he's so good in it. But I loved all three of them, and like I say, Alex Mann, like there's a real craziness to him in the eyes and the smile. That if you were to say to me like, "Oh yeah, actually Alex Mann was like involved in organized crime and like was like a mob leader or something like in the shady underworld of Hong Kong," I wouldn't be like, "Oh wow, really?" I'd be like, yeah, I can see it. There's a particular scene where he's like got this like he's like a bit of bamboo or something like that's been carved into a knife, and like a shiv, and he's threatening Chow Yun Fat with it, before they become friends, and it's just the intimidation of it. Of course, Chow Yun Fat, he's like the king of cool, whatever, like and I love how Alex Mann's just like oh, this guy isn't really folding under the normal pressure I put upon people. This is interesting. I like this guy. So I just love how their relationship unfolded and became stronger and stuff. And the way the film ended was very powerful, I thought. And especially tying back the whole narrative flashback of the person who's telling the story was really choked me up a little bit, actually. And then the credits and the music, it was just, and it just all just comes together so beautifully. You know, not to overuse the word beautiful, but man, I love this film so much. The transfer is incredible, and the cinematography is great, which helps. And I have no complaints. I really don't. I loved it. I loved the feel of it. I loved his, Alex Mann's character's like little apartment house, which like there's no door on it. It just people just walk in and out. But there was like a quaintness to it that felt cozy, and at the same time this looming threat constantly after the occupation begins. But you never get a sense of the wider scope of it. It really is contained within this very small, village town, and I liked that because it felt intimate and kept the story focused on these three characters, which I think is kind of key to what the film is doing, is you know showing their journey together, and it just felt so believable, and the chemistry between all three of them worked in different ways and worked together in tandem as well, which just sealed the whole deal for me. So yeah, and going back to Alex Mann, yeah, that he feels to me like a Nicolas Cage or like a Willem Dafoe, someone who's just like all in on the performance. And whether that will work or not for people is maybe up for debate. But like, he just, he feels so believable in this kind of this. He's not really wild, but just like, I don't know. There's just something a bit edgy about him, and like I say, that crazy smile. It's the similar in the in Rich and Famous and Tragic Hero, but specifically Tragic Hero, where he is a character who becomes the bad guy, and when he becomes the bad guy, it's like, oh yeah, he was born to play the bad guy. He suits that down to the ground. And in this film, there were these moments where I wasn't sure if things were going to shift with him, because he just has that crazy look. You know what I mean? I don't know whether that's inherent to him as a person, because some people just look nasty or like tough or sullen, and some people just look kind and warm, and it's just the way that they are. And maybe some people just look crazy, or whether he's baking that into his. If it's performance, then that's really impressive. But I kind of feel like he just has that kind of crazy face when he smiles, and when he's trying to be intimidating, and it works. But one other thing that I really set me in good stead for this film was, now that I've seen a lot of Hong Kong films, I know that the normal rules don't necessarily apply. Plot armor is not necessary, and I don't really like that term, but it isn't really something that exists a whole lot in Hong Kong cinema. So for me, you have these three main characters, and in a Hollywood film, that's it. You've set that trio. That's that. We're gonna get to the end of the film. It's all gonna be okay. They're all gonna be all right. They're all gonna live happily ever after. This is Hong Kong. I know that at any point, one of these three characters could to die. So there is that tangible threat throughout, especially with this occupation of the Japanese soldiers. For me, it just felt like, yeah, at any point anyone could die, and that adds an extra level of involvement and kind of engagement with what you're watching, I think. Because if this was an American film and everything was done the exact same way, it was a Hollywood movie, I would have no question in my mind that all three of these are going to make it to the end. So there wouldn't be any kind of, when there are these moments of peril, I wouldn't be like, oh God, oh God, I'd just be like, oh no, that's bad. I wonder how they're going to get out of this. Whereas this one, I was like, how is he going to get? Is he going to get out of this? Fuck it, like, I like that. It's more exciting and more involving. So and there's something to be said for a nice, safe, comfortable movie too. But I like it when it's a bit more on the edge, and you get that with this film. And that's pretty much all I got to say about Hong Kong 1941. So I really enjoyed talking about this. I love the film. It's not always going to be like this, and there might be videos where it's just, I have about 10 minutes to say, yeah, this was pretty good, and that was pretty much it. But a great one to start with, I thought, because, man, I love this film. Like, I can't wait to watch it again. And I almost want to watch the English dub just to have a different version of it, but I sampled some of the English dub and it was not good. It wasn't very good, so I don't think I'll do that. But obviously I'm going to kind of go through the commentary and stuff and the extras. Yeah, there's a lot of like recent interviews with the director as well. There's also a piece by Tony Raines, so I'm really looking forward to checking that out, because he's always great to listen to and has so much knowledge and really conveys what he's talking about very well. So yeah, this is a really nice release. Great release, even, for the fact that the film was so good, and that's the main thing. It has a great transfer. It must be a 4K restoration. not surprising whatsoever. It just has that the detail and the grain, and yeah, oh man, I'm so happy that I've seen this film because I'd never heard. And again, most of these films I've never heard of before. You know, yeah, Police Story, Hard Boiled. Some of these films just have their kind of their cultural place. You know, I know it's a Chinese film, but you know, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. There's certain films from the East, you know, from East Asia that just have a kind of a pedigree and like a name value and stuff. But most of the films I'm seeing it, they don't have that kind of, you know, 3 years ago I wouldn't have heard of half of these films. You know, so like take for example, Yes Madam with Michelle Yeoh, Cynthia Rothrock. I had no idea what that film was. I'd never heard of it before, but I was aware of the shot, which you see in the intro, which I love so much, where they clap hands and they do the synchronized, like, getting ready for the fight. That's like this iconic gif for me that I've seen so much. So the things kind of enter your mind and hold space. Remember that, holding space? Sorry. I'll just hold my finger for the duration of this video. Yeah, the iconography of Hong Kong cinema, we're really holding space with that. But no, there's these certain things that are there in your mind. But like 95% of like the Blu-rays I have of these, Five Deadly Venoms, that was one I'd heard of, right? You know, so there's a few, but most of them, you know, when this was announced, I'd never heard of it, you know. But another great thing about this series that I'm so excited about is that now I'm like, oh, I want to see more of Cecilia Yip. Okay, I've got Nomad, which I think was her first role. I know she's in Center Stage, you know, which I have. Chow Yun Fat. There's Witch from Nepal that I just got in. So, you know, there's another one as well, like the Last Postman or something. I think it says on the Postman Strikes Back. It was the Last Postman. What's his name? What is his name? Dances with what? Kevin Costner. Was that like the Last Postman or something, or the Postman? I don't know. But there's the Postman Strikes Back. There's a couple of other things. Oh, God of Gamblers, you know. So I have a few, and that one has Joey Wong in it too. So I like how like I'm getting to know these actors, and Alex Mann, who I've seen before. So that's fun for me. Going, oh, this is, and seeing their range or lack of range or whatever. Like seeing Wu Ma in this was like a cool like you know. So anyway, I could waffle on and on, so I'll leave it there. Hong Kong 1941. That is and those were my thoughts. Sorry. It's been a long night of filming. It's taken me a long time to get around to filming videos, and it's good to finally get back to it. And so I'm a bit more overexcited about talking, I guess, because it's just fun. And I was just so happy that the first film for this series was a good one, a great one. And I look forward to talking about many more in the future. So, good start, I think. We'll see where it goes. It'll be up and down, I'm sure. But thank you for joining me. Please check this out if you're on the fence. I would highly recommend it, despite the middling reviews on Letterboxd. I think it was great, and I think at best, or you know, at least, sorry, I feel surely people would have to enjoy this. It's a very good film. It is, what would be the right? Because it is ated. It is ated. Oh my god, I'll leave that in for free. It is rated 18. It doesn't have the description of why on the back. Oh, this is a AB region free release. I didn't know that. Region A and B. So there you go. If you're in America, maybe they release this in America. I don't know. I don't think I've seen that before. Not that I really look at the region coding, because I wouldn't need to, but I just saw it there as I was looking on the back. Yeah, there is some distressing material in this. Not like super graphic, but it's a violent film. There's some sexual violence in it too, and yeah. Okay, before we leave, I will say there is a moment of sexual violence in the film that I feel like wasn't given enough weight beyond that. I felt like it could have been dealt with a bit better. So, you know, just to throw in one little thing that I thought maybe, you know, because I sometimes feel like a shill, especially with the Eureka Blu-rays, because I just seem to love most of the films they put out. But no, I really did love this film so much, and the performances, cinematography, music, story, setting, feel, you know, I don't know, just worked for me. I will wrap it up now. Thank you for watching. No, you hang up. I've already used that joke before in a previous video, so let's try not make a habit of that. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.